My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm with Workweek, Pacifica's COVID, Race, and Democracy, and also the United Front Committee for a Labor Party. And we have been covering the struggle of the Namibian miners, their unjust firing. And today we're going to have a report about a labor arbitration that was held in Namibia for the 9 fired members of the union who are fighting to get their jobs back from Rössing. So welcome, and let's begin the presentation discussion here.
To give a short synopsis of the case. I'll be very short about that. It is the mining management of Rössing, which is now owned by China, a Chinese company. Is it the Chinese state?
Chinese.
Yeah, it's a state company that owns the mine now as the majority shareholding. They used spying tactics on the union branch executive at the mine to dismiss them individually from their employment. And they took the case of unfair dismissal to the tribunal, labor tribunal here in Swakopmund. They've approached me to represent them, and since November 2020, last year, I have been representing them. The aim of the Chinese state corporation is to dismantle the union, to make it a toothless operation in the service of this management. I presume that is more or less the relation that they have with unions in China that they wish to recreate here. Now, right from the start, from 2020, they tried to drag their feet in getting the arbitration going. So the case was twice postponed on spurious grounds, fraudulent claims and so on. And the case was then eventually set down from Monday until today for conciliation and arbitration. They brought in a new lawyer on top of the company lawyer whom they had used before and who's still part of the case. They made an application, and then this new lawyer of a private firm entered the case on Monday. And immediately they insisted that the case be postponed. They brought in an application for the recusal of the arbitrator and of throwing the case out because of certain alleged fatal deficiencies of the case, defective. The case was defective. All this was just ruses not to have the case heard because the case has no merits. They investigated the union at the mine, and they accused the union of union officials of having breached such things as confidentiality, of dishonesty, and so on, in their capacity as union officials. And they use that, those trumped up charges and manufactured charges to dismiss the officials in their individual capacity as workers. So there is no valid reason and no fair procedure. The situation generally is that the mines around Namibia have lost much of their strength because of the extreme weakness of the union bureaucracy. And the 9 mine workers, the union branch executive at the Rössing mine was in fact the last remaining stronghold of the union. It's highly principled, very hard-headed, determined young people who have been fighting the efforts of the Chinese management from the outset to derogate labor rights. Like they wanted to derogate the health insurance. They want to derogate rights across the board for workers. And when these workers did not budge, this branch executive, who was in fact acting as the effective leadership of the union, they worked with, they instituted this mockery of an investigation to get rid of them. So this is what the struggle is now all about. Now, the day before yesterday, they took an urgent application to the labor court. That is now at the same level as the High Court. It's a division of the High Court of Namibia. And they brought an urgent application in order to stay the proceedings. The arbitrator that we have seems to be an upright fellow. He's very competent, and he has been resisting their bullying tactics, etc. And so they decided to get rid of them. The situation, the legal situation in Namibia is that it is controlled by the white colonial legal fraternity. They're still in charge of the courts right up to the Supreme Court of Namibia, and they bully the black judges. I would not say, bully and control the black judges who have a strange submissiveness to white supremacy. This is a colony in which white supremacy still holds sway. And this is the situation that this fellow comes into arbitration, and he expects this black arbitrator to dance to his dictates. That was the situation. And because this fellow is obviously a very competent arbitrator, they want to get rid of him. And for this reason, they took it up to the labor court. Unfortunately for them, they seem to have taken it to the wrong judge, which is a judge from Ghana originally. And this fellow has a known history of being against the imperialist exploitation of Africa. And he, despite the pressure from the corrupt judiciary of Namibia, he tries to keep a very independent line. Of course, up to a limit he can. But because they use the precarious position of foreign judges to force them to toe the line. And the white legal fraternity used the most atrocious methods that has got nothing in common with law and decorum of courts, the most criminal methods thinkable to defeat the rule of law. This is possible because we have comprador state here. And they have symbiotic relationship with the white supremacists. They get the crumbs off the table of white corporations, etc. Not to say that it's a blanket racism. The white working class are beginning to suffer the same oppression as their black counterparts. So it is fundamentally capitalist corporation control and rule in this country on the working class, irrespective of race. That is the peculiarity of this country. And that is the situation which it was very fortuitous for these comrades that we got Judge Parker in the labor court, because he gave an order. They wanted to bring a condonation for, like the usual urgent applications, condonation for from non-compliance with the rules of the court. He didn't allow them that. He gave a rule nisi until the 8th of June, with the option of anticipating the urgent application by these comrades before that time. To come and show why the case is not urgent. And yeah, why the case is not urgent, and why the arbitration proceedings should be stayed. Those were the two. The other prayers that they've asked for, he did not grant. And which means the situation now is such that if the workers are successful in disposing of this application, it basically curtails further attempts by them to drag out the matter, and it puts the case squarely in the hands of the arbitrator, the present arbitrator. That is, if they are. Now, so today we've had a meeting after the case, and we have evaluated the prospects. We brought in another comrade who is actually extremely competent jurist. He has studied in America. He has worked for a governor, and not that makes him competent, but he has worked for a governor in advisory capacity on law and finance. So he is very experienced, and he has worked here in Namibia in the financial supervisory authority. So he's got extensive experience. He is at present representing our party in the Supreme Court.
The point of the matter is, Steve, the company or the management is not playing a fair game. They are using their financial muscles to frustrate and prolong the matter to their advantage. But we as the 9 have decided to give the same fight back. one of the things that we are doing is we are in solidarity with other mine workers that also suffered the same fate. They are comrades from a company called Beifeng. It's a Chinese-owned company, and they also dismissed their branch executive unlawfully, the same way as us. So their cases are also before the Labor Commissioner's Office. They went through conciliation, but they are busy fighting their case. We are also joined by a comrade in Walvis Bay from the dock workers that was also unlawfully dismissed, and he also supports our fights, and we support this cause also. 2 months ago, a newly elected BEC branch executive on the mine was elected, and their chairperson was also dismissed without going through a formal hearing. These are the events that are happening here. Swakop Uranium, our next door neighbors, have also seen the fight that we are fighting, where illegal employment of foreign nationals, which are Chinese employees that were brought in to come and take over Namibian roles, Namibian workers' role at a lower level. Without specialized skills, they come and do the work of the floor that is on the floor. So they've also put in a dispute against that, and the workers have registered their dispute through the Office of the Labor Commissioner. I also want to hand over to Comrade Julius Ashipala, who's the Information Secretary of our branch. I'll give him the floor to speak on some of the matters that we've embarked on.
Thank you, fellow comrades. My name is Julius Ashipala. I held the portfolio of the Secretary for Information and Publicity during our tenure. And I'm one of the 9 illegally dismissed branch executive committee. I think one aspect that my comrade George forgot to mention, there's a strike also ongoing here in the country in Karibib, where employees have embarked on a protected strike, and it has escalated to an extent where the company's name is Best Cheer Investment, also owned by Chinese nationals. So basically, while the employees are on strike, the Chinese use their people to do the work of the employees that are on strike. And it brought a lot of commotion there, where the employees basically blocked the entrance to the mine. So that is just another developing story. Coming back to our case, we are up against a system that has really suppressed us. But what's critical to note is that the support has been coming, and it's deeply appreciated. We have been, during our proceedings, employees of Rössing mine and our family members have come to stand in solidarity with us during the proceedings. So it is important to highlight that. On the way forward, in terms of our plan of action, we have May Day, which is on the 1st of May every year. That it's a national public holiday where employees commemorate the day, where we will be joining our fellow comrades of the Fishermen Association in Walvis, where there's more than 700 members that we will be joining to commemorate this day. We are in the process of mobilizing fellow comrades that, especially some that have suffered the same fate as us, so that we can join hands and and find ways to put a stop to these capitalists that are killing our organizations, that are destroying freedom of association, that are destroying fundamental human rights. So this is one of our plan of action. And is there anything else, Comrade George?
Yeah, Steve, I also forgot to mention that we've seen the way the management or the company CNNC Rössing Uranium is operating. They use illegal methods to legalize and stem forth their actions. We were thinking of, we don't actually know of border lawyers with borders or without borders. So we actually wanted to touch on that matter to see how best we can be assisted in if the company is using their muscles to corrupt the system with their things.
Well, thank you, brothers, for your report. And it's the issues you raise are obviously important. As to that, I mean, we'll open it up. Before we do that, I want to point out that the violation, the blatant and brazen violation of Namibian labor law by these companies, if it's allowed to continue, that is a threat to all workers throughout Africa, Asia, and Latin America, where a company can just ignore the labor laws flagrantly, and the workers in that country have no rights, not only under their contract, but under their own national labor law. So I think that's an issue that can be taken up internationally. And obviously, we want to build solidarity with you, brothers, to make sure that you're successful, because your success actually would benefit workers throughout the world who are fighting union busting, who are fighting attacks on the right to have a union. Neil?
Okay, yeah. Comrades, good evening. My name is Neil Matthijs. I'm from South Africa. I was invited to this forum via Anamajavu, right? I've listened to the conversation and the report back. What I need to find out from comrades is, you see, what we're dealing with here is a continuous capitalist exploitation under the guise of Marxism. Let's be honest on that. China still sees itself as Marxist.
Yeah.
We can call it Maoism, Marxism, whatever. They still see themselves as communist.
Okay.
But it's a guise for exploitation, right? Now, the question I have, my Namibian comrades, is Namibia is a member of the ILO, the International Labour Organization, right?
Yeah.
Therefore,
Yes.
all activity within Namibia is governed by the rectifications and articles of the ILO.
Yes.
So when we fight this case, we need to go look in the ILO specific what articles are the government of Namibia neglecting to enforce for a fair labor process. And we can argue the debate that the ILO is also a bourgeois institute that will always continue supporting capitalism, but somehow, sometimes on the progressive front, we need to point to them their international obligations that they've signed on as a government to protect the interests of their citizens, right? Now, Namibia is not an exception in Africa, and this is where we make the mistake. We need to now also start to document the atrocity of the Chinese government across Africa. What they did in Sudan on the environmental front, what they did in Mozambique when they removed the dunes and the cyclones hit, those, and how they are keeping destroying the environment in Mozambique by illegal logging and all that. You see, we need to show a pattern. Although your case is important, comrades, but what your case comes a pattern of atrocities. We need to build a pattern to show here it's not an insulated case of Chinese greed. Yes, China supported us in Africa in our liberation or our struggle towards liberation, but it doesn't give them the right as an automatic exploiter of the same things we fought against. Right? And I will tell you what happened in South Africa. I worked for GE for a while. I'm a health and safety, and I'm also an environmentalist. So I was working at Transnet. We were building the 44 class. Chinese got somehow the E20, the Chinese government, China South, right? The day when they just came up to workers, and that's what they did. Transnet came to workers, it's about 150 workers, and says, you are all on contract. You signed a contract last month, but we are terminating your contract. So basically sending 150 families to starvation, right? And I helped organizing, although I was working for General Electric, I was not supposed to in terms of corporate, but I was obliged as a worker to assist those workers. So what I'm saying is, comrades, is that China is riding rough over Africa, right? They came in an anti-imperialist stance to end up becoming imperialists themselves, right? So all I'm saying is, comrades, when we deal with this case, do not just lodge the obligation of the Namibian government in terms of the ILO responsibility. Because if you're going to start building your case from that perspective also, you can say that it's not only China, because we need to show to the broader public in Namibia and in Southern Africa, right, how the Chinese government is taking our governments, democratically elected governments, hostage. And this is the political battle that we have to, and we will have to encounter and mobilize around. Because we can't say Namibia is sovereign. We can't say South Africa is sovereign. We can't say Botswana is sovereign. Where there is Chinese intervention, there's no sovereignty. I mean, these guys went and go and buried tons and tons of chemicals in Sudan. The Ethiopian dam project they're building is falling apart. So they just come and extract resources. So they're no better than any other imperialist. And I think we should look at the ILO obligations to hold the Namibian government accountable for its actions. Because they are part of the problem. And we don't owe no government, no loyalty. We owe loyalty to the working class. So that's my contribution. Sorry, comrades, for taking so long.
Thank you, Comrade Neil. I think your contribution was useful. And we'll go to our next question. Greg Dropkin from Liverpool.
If I may, comrades, so you are saying that your contracts with these other entities or other states ends on 2025, right? What is the life expectancy of your mine, right? I'm going to put on my other head and I'm going to put on my environmentalist head, right? I'm a person of many heads. Okay. So the question is then, if your contracts end in 2025, what is the life expectancy of that mine? In other words, is it going to be for another 50 years? And what is the mining closing procedures? Because what I'm trying to get at here, comrades, is simple, that we need to link your dismissal, as unfair as it is, also to environmental justice. Okay. And we need to mobilize communities around the environmental question, right? Okay. Because South Africa and Namibia got very similar legislation, both on labor and on environmental, right? Yes. So if, while we are fighting the unfairness, we need to build with the community, right? And for me, is from an environmental front, do we have the air quality requirements? Because they violated environment labor law already. So what will prohibit them by violating environmental law? This is capitalists we are dealing with. We're not dealing with, and capitalists we can't defeat with good slogans. We need to defeat them with hard work, right? So we need to link the unfairness of your treatment to what is happening on the environmental front. How are they dealing with environmental issues? Are they violating at this stage environmental authorizations that was given to them? In other words, storing, transportation of visitors and all of those things, right? Where is the area where they dump their waste, the mining waste, is it secure? Does people those are the things we need also to focus on. So we can't fight them just on one front. We need to fight them on many fronts, and the best way to do it is to build conscious organizations within the community as leaders within the community. I mean, that's just my take on it, comrades.
The question on the mine life. I can answer that question with Rio Tinto had a mine life of 2025 before China National Nuclear Corporation took over. So they were busy. They were busy with a study that can cater for that can expand the life of mine. And there were plans to put the mine on care and maintenance if a suitable buyer could not buy the majority shares. So there were plans and projects that were there to extend mine of life to 2050, 30 years from now. Yeah. So you can say that the life of mine can be extended from 2025 to and beyond, yes, because it still have that value. But with regards to what those projects are, I don't think I'm in a position to speak about those projects because I did not sign off those projects. They were confidential information between Rio Tinto and the CNNC government.
It can't be, comrade.
I think this issue of environmental protection is connected to the development projects of China, because other countries, American companies that go in and basically destroy the environment and enslave the workers in the development project. So I agree with that. Today is Earth Day, and environmentalists need to join with labor and workers around the world to fight the same fight, which is the protection of our environment and protection of workers' rights. So I agree with Comrade Neil about the need to link up the environmental movement in Africa with the labor movement and to talk about these projects. And I think maybe we can organize a working group to put this information together on the development projects in Africa, how they're affecting workers and the community throughout Africa. The same should be done in Asia and in Latin America, because you have a similar process of major development projects. Because China is the largest capital exporter in the world now, they are the largest developer of projects. So what is the effect of these projects on the environment and on the workers in the country and in the hemisphere? So maybe we can, as part of the defense campaign, we can organize a project to do that so that we can understand more clearly what's going on a global level, which is critical, I think.
Yeah, can I just help here about the uranium? Namibia has got 5 designated uranium areas where, and of which Rössing is has the lowest concentration of uranium. The others are largely unexplored, unexploited at this juncture. So it is in close proximity. Now, I'm saying this under correction. I'll just check it up, but the mapping shows 5 areas. I'm not so certain whether each, they said, is as large as Belgium, or whether the entire 5 is as large as Belgium, but it's an enormous amount of uranium. So the issue of the life of the mine seems to be an academic question, because they will just shift the entire operation over to the next core body.
Yeah, can answer. Comrade Neil, with regards to the environmental aspect at Rössing, Rössing has clear safety and environmental policies, and they have environmental officers and a health department. And for the time that we used to work there, or for the time that we were employed with Rössing, it was quite under strict measures, or the monitoring, the air quality. There are equipment that measures those things and everything. So there's a report that comes out every month on how how the environment was how Rössing is monitoring the water and the environment. So those things are still intact, or I believe. I can say that I believe.
For me, the bigger question is, comrade, is that those things were intact under old management, right? And old management, right? We're dealing no longer with old management. We're dealing now with new management. And you are the first casualties of new management, right? There are many casualties after you. There are going to be many, comrades. It's going to be a bloodbath. They sold it in Malawi. They sold it in Nigeria. They sold it in Ghana. There's going to be bloodbath.
Okay.
So we need to take from those lessons and learn from them very quickly. And the biggest lesson for me is, both as a political activist, an environmentalist, and a trade unionist, we need to mobilize the community, but we need to get points where the community can latch on to the campaign. The campaign should not, yes, it should be the core, this muscle and unfair treatment, but also what is happening to our environment. What is the current position on mine closure? What is the amount of money put aside by the new administration of that mine for mine closure? What's going to happen with the workers after 2025? 4 more years, what's going to happen to those workers? Do they have guaranteed jobs at a new site? Where is the new site going to be? So that is the way we need to agitate. Yes, National Union of Mineworkers in Namibia is not on your side at this moment, right? But we need to build alternatives where there is no bureaucracy, but where it stands under the dictatorship of the proletariat directly. And we need to inculcate that mindset, that political ideological mindset, that we as the proletariat will dictate the pace and the timing of our fights, not our imperialist enemy. They can fight. We will look at them, but when we're ready, we will employ our own guerrilla tactic at that moment.
I'm a little interested in the issue because, I visited Namibia in 1972, which shows my gray hairs. But, there was a massive struggle there, which actually really was dynamite in the whole foundation of apartheid and oppression in Southern Africa. And, Namibia showed the way to South Africa. Now the question is South Africa prepared to stand fast with the Namibian workers? What's happened to COSATU? What's happened to, workers in struggle in South Africa who previously were at least giving support to Rössing? We all knew Rössing. We knew you guys were organizing and doing something of note. And the NUM, when it came up in South Africa, at least registered, those issues, I remember, in the 1980s, if not in the 90s. So the question is, how are we to unite throughout Southern Africa? I know it's a mess in Zimbabwe. The union's reduced to nothing there, unfortunately. And we all face a kind of new dictatorship. It might call itself democratic, but actually it's the state, the guns, the lawyers, the judges, all, ranked up against the workers throughout Southern Africa. And how do we unite and put our ideas together? I agree with the tactics. Let's bring out all the environmental issues and let's appeal to workers internationally. I'm sorry that we don't have more workers internationally, to hear your story. It's absolutely despicable. People think that maybe the East is red, because China was previously revolutionary. Now it supports counter-revolution throughout the world. I mean, it's beyond imagination. I mean, they are voting against any action and against the military dictatorship in Myanmar, in Burma. And everywhere they support the oppressors. It's a horrible fact of life. Okay, so now we don't really want to be anti-Chinese. It's not that. Chinese working class could give them a big lesson in the future, a really big lesson, like we gave a lesson to our oppressors in the 1970s and beyond. But it's, there's a time gap, and we have to explain ourselves well. And maybe we should even get through to Chinese workers in one way or other. I know it's very difficult, but internationally, we do want to see that support. And I'm just sorry we don't have more. In the group that I'm working with, Workers International Network, we have been trying to put out your ideas because we've seen some of the stuff. And we'll certainly do more. I can't guarantee it because there are 101 issues, but at least I'll make sure it's on the agenda.
That is important. The role of South African unions in the past have supported the workers of Namibia, but there's been silence, and maybe the comrades from Namibia can talk about their efforts to get support and why they think that there hasn't been any public support by unions in South Africa in your struggle.
Just to touch on that, we've written letters to COSATU and NUMSA. We've written solidarity letters with regards to their general strike that they had, and none of those letters came back with replies. We believe that our head office might have communicated with them on this issue. So it's very disappointing, because for COSATU and NUMSA as leaders and as giant unions, we were very disappointed that we didn't even get one reply saying either we received your letters or emails. So it's very saddening, because we are even numb. I don't even know what to say anymore. But we appreciate the workers all around the world from other countries like the United States, Argentina, Japan, Britain, Brazil, you can name them. They have supported our cause. We have a brother that responded to our letter from Zimbabwe, close by. That was surprising, and we appreciate all the support that we get. What I also want to put through, our fight is not against Chinese workers, because workers in general have to unite, whether they are Chinese, they are Namibian, Zimbabwean, South African. We speak, to be a worker should be universal. It should not be whether you are Chinese or that. We don't discriminate against any worker, but we discriminate, or we are against capitalists that are there to exploit the workers. We will stand against them, and that is our fight. In our terms, we've written a letter to Comrade Xi, the Chinese president. Up to now, we're still awaiting his response. We've written a letter to the president of our Republic of Namibia. We still did not have any reply on those letters.
Yeah, I'll start then with a little story from Liverpool, given what you've just been talking about. During the Liverpool Dockers fight, which went on for 2.5 years, fairly early on, they were trying to get in touch with the Dockers in Le Havre in France, and they wrote them various letters, and they didn't get anywhere. And eventually they just went to the dock and went into it. And then it all came out that the letters had never arrived because the union official in Le Havre was holding them back because he didn't want to give them to the workers. That's what the story turned out to be. And of course, when the Le Havre dockers found this out, they turned on the union official and kind of crucified him. So, I don't know with COVID whether it is feasible for you to travel to South Africa or whether it's advisable. But I think you need to consider when it is possible to actually go and turn up at the relevant offices and have this conversation face to face. That would be my suggestion. But I wanted to come back to the environmental issue. I agree very strongly with what Neil said, and the environmental, or related to the environment issue that I was involved in, is the one of the cancers amongst the workers who had been at the mine. And it's possible that if they break the union organization at Rössing, they will then not pay workers who get ill afterwards. That would be one of the things I would be worried about, because the delay between exposure and developing the cancer can be 20 or 30 years even. So you might think everything is fine now, and 20 years from now you find out it isn't fine. You won't know until you get there, and there has to be a really watertight provision for the medical care that people are going to need in the future after they no longer work at the mine. And this seems to me to be an issue that the community would respond to if you take it up properly, because people will know other people who are suffering. So that, and in South Africa, that work was done with the NUM.
Right, Neil.
Neil, in fact, the Chinese, there's campaigns against the Chinese for delogging the north of the country, Congo.
Yes.
It's doing here what it's doing everywhere.
Yes.
That is the first thing I wish to say. The other issue is on the ILO. The fishermen took up complaints with the ILO. And in the case of the United States office, not the UN office,
United Nations.
the United Nations office in Geneva, they had a good response. There was a good expose, which I don't need to explain now. I fully agree that the ILO should be accessed. Yeah, those are the some of the issues. The other issue is, I must say, I'm the representative of these comrades in the arbitration, but it doesn't mean that I must agree with everything they say. I've been advising them. The union leadership said they support them. Now, and they do pay for legal fees, whether it's effective, but they still pay. Now, I say instead of renouncing the defective thing, the union leadership is in a weak point. These fellows are in a strong position in the union because of the stance and because basically the workers around Namibia support them at the mines. As you've just heard, the Karibib miners are a very militant group. There are still serious pockets of militancy amongst workers, and Namibian workers have a history of militancy. So they've got, and now with the May Day, they are going to unite the struggles of Karibib, of the South, Deep South, Roshpina, and Tsumeb, and the fishermen in Walvis Bay. We are going to stage a May Day, a mass May Day in Walvis Bay, maybe hopefully in Tsumeb and so on. It's just the resources that they need to stage an effective struggle. And they will bring out a newspaper of all the present struggles, where large struggles are taking place as a May Day edition, which you will get hopefully by next week. This is the situation. What I'm saying, all I'm advising them is to leave the union leadership, accept their support, and hold them to it to the last minute,
Yes.
even though we know it is rubbish.
Yes.
It is a sellout union leadership, but they are under pressure. It's not these comrades of ours that are under pressure in that respect. That's only a little advice that I wish to give here, because I don't accept that they do not support. They say they support and they give some support. That if support is defective, but they are being forced by circumstances to say that they support them. Okay. The last thing I wish to say is that the Chinese, in my opinion, proves they've consummated the characterization by Marxists that Stalinism is an agency in the working class movement. And they have just crystallized it out in their form of imperialism, because it's the most destructive imperialism. They wish to destroy everything, and in particular working class organization and rights in the shortest possible period. I'm certain behind the scenes, the American and European imperialists are liking it. To a certain extent, only insofar as the Chinese march, inexorable march is taking place. But this explains the problem we have with South African working class organizations. We were at the launch of the Workers' Party, Revolutionary Workers' Party. We have contacted them, we have spoken to them. We have asked them at a meeting in Joburg to think of the Christian adage that says, I was looking for my God, I didn't find him. Then I was looking for my neighbor and I didn't find him. Then I was looking for my brother and I found all three. Now, I explained to them they were having symposiums in which they invited Chinese mine workers, unions, South American, Venezuelan workers, but they did not, and they are the leading working class. Without them, we are nothing. They should have looked at Angola, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, all where there are working class struggles. And these workers are fighting with their backs against the wall. This week, the Zimbabwean working class party sent them solidarity meetings. The South Africans, SAFTU, made a resolution that they are going to issue a statement. Until today, they have not issued a statement. This is because, I think, because of the effect of Stalinist compartmentalization that is in the minds of the bureaucracies in South Africa. And that has to be broken down. But how will we break it down? By effective struggles in Namibia and putting pressure on the leaders in South Africa through progressive working class leaders and activists in South Africa.
Yes, this is the brother from Zimbabwe. How are you, comrades?
We are fine. How are you?
No, we are fine. I'm Fortune Ramakon, or Comrade Tigwe from the Revolutionary Workers Group,
Okay.
which is part of an international tendency known as the International Leninist Tendency, Leninist-Trotskyist tendency. We issued our solidarity message a couple of days ago in support of the fired workers from the Rössing mine. We are fully behind their demands that the workers' leaders should be reinstated without loss of pay. We are very clear about that. But I have an issue that I also want clarification from the union leaders, or maybe from the union, the branch leaders, or maybe the national union leaders there. When I asked other union leaders here in Zimbabwe to also write solidarity messages, they said that they will receive official notifications of that, of the need to do so from the respective unions in Namibia. So I'm not very sure whether that was followed up to, or whether there is a way around that, where comrades are in direct communication with unions here in Zimbabwe. And if that is so, I haven't seen any solidarity message from unions here in Zimbabwe, besides the fact that I approached them and asked them to do so. So I also need an answer to that effect, so that I can relay that to other comrades, whether that is the appropriate way, or they should have just dealt with the issue of solidarity as a request that I had made. The last point that I also wish to make is that I don't think it is surprising that some of these organizations, especially the unions that we have been talking about, are reluctant to offer solidarity. I think it is they are being compromised by their relationship or their views of China. some still see China as progressive. So they are very reluctant to denounce the actions by the Chinese companies and even by the Chinese government. So I think as comrades, we need to be very clear about where some of our comrades, even within the trade unions and even within the political spectrum, stand, because some see China as progressive. So I think it should not surprise us that some of these comrades are reluctant to offer solidarity. We should move with those who are very clear, and who are willing to offer solidarity. On our part, we are also going to include this issue on our May Day statement that we are going to, if the situation permits, we are going to read when workers attend the May Day celebration. So I think for now, that is all that I can say, comrade. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Fortune. We received your solidarity message. Just to answer on that, the solidarity message comes through straight to us. We don't have a platform where unions have to go through other unions to send their solidarity to us. I hope that answers it. The other thing that I left out is if you want to follow the feedback session of our case, of our labor case that we had during this week, we have it was live streamed through my Facebook account, and Comrade Steve, I hope you can share my Facebook email, yeah, and then just send it through the comrades to view. Thank you.
And we also have an international solidarity page that we've set up, and we're also getting an account so people can make contributions directly. And I think that is critical because these comrades have been without their jobs since September. I think the company is trying to starve them out, to basically starve them out so that they have no resources. And this is not uncommon. This is the method of capitalist bosses, and that is to bleed people, to starve them so that they don't have any ability to fight back. So us giving financial support to these brothers and their families is going to be critical in our effort to make sure that their struggle is successful. So making financial contributions is an important part of our solidarity. I think that the structure of the unions internationally is a top-down structure, and I think that was one of the lessons that Greg was referring to with the Liverpool dockers, and even the strike of the Liverpool dockers was suppressed by the national leadership. They didn't want to let people know around the world about it, but we were able to break the borders, get the information out, and build international solidarity despite the top union structure, which did not want to build an international campaign. And I think we have the same task in front of us today for the Namibian miners. And we are going to do that and get support. Now, the question of, in the United States is a question of, well, because in the United States, there's a rise of xenophobia and attack on Asian workers in the United States. Asian workers, but Trump incited the racist and right-wingers to attack Asian workers because of the virus. So this is a dangerous situation, and workers, Marxists have to unite against xenophobia and racism and racist attacks against Asians. And we're doing that in the United States. At the same time, we have to defend workers wherever they are, China, Namibia, Zimbabwe. This is an international struggle. And we cannot say to any country of the world, because whether you believe that country is socialist or not, there's obviously differences, we're not going to support workers who are employed by Chinese companies. That would be a break of internationalism. It would be a break of workers' solidarity and the need to defend workers globally, regardless of the government or country that runs these mines. I think that's very critical for us on an international level. Comrade Neil?
Yeah, comrade. You see, comrades, you've written to Cosatu. Cosatu is dying a slow death in South Africa. Let's be honest about it. Let's call a spade here. Cosatu is dying. That is honestly, right? SAFTU have their own internal issues, right? But there's other sections or pockets of the labor movement that you also need to try to talk to if you didn't, like AMCO, right? AMCO is bigger than National Union of Mine Workers in South Africa at this moment. They are the biggest union within the mining sector. We need to look at social movements also globally and within South Africa, especially around the question of what you are mining and what we are saying. For example, Earth Life, right? You need to link up with Earth Life in Joburg or in Durban. We are re-establishing the Earth Life Cape Town, which I'm part of now, of the steering committee to re-establish that branch there. But we need to have a broader than just the unions, because the union bureaucracy will always swallow us alive, right? So we need to have a broader stream. Social movements, anti-privatization, Earth Life Africa, Abaslali in Durban. There are many in Zimbabwe that we can draw on. There are many in Botswana. So my position is, are we isolating ourselves by saying we're going to focus on the unions, which we know are becoming more and more useless because they are becoming more and more a bureaucracy and an inheritance type of thing by themselves, where I will inherit my father's union one day, and there's always fight within the unions. Comrade, I've been at the unions for 24 years. I think I can throw a penny in on that one, on the question of inheritance. But we need to look broader than just the unions. We need to socialize our oppression, that people can see it out there. Because unions will cover it up, because I want my son to inherit a healthy union.
Yeah.
A dormant, healthy union. My firstborn, that's your inheritance.
We strongly agree with you, yes, comrade. Forward.
Okay, well, I think that was useful, and also obviously to get in touch with the Mine Workers Union in South Africa directly and make an appeal to them, because that support would be important. But so that's something we can do. Okay, well, are there any other comments? Oh, Cheryl, Comrade Cheryl, you have your hand up?
Yes, good evening, comrades, and thank you. I've been listening intently to the comrades from Namibia, and your struggle, comrades, is very important. It's very noble. I'm not sitting here today with a mandate from any organization. I tuned into this session out of interest in struggles of workers internationally, and so on. I work in community structures in Johannesburg, and more we're finding that it's important to begin to make the linkages between workers on the shop floor and workers within communities. And how do we begin to do that, to build solidarity and to take on these issues in a more united way? So I like what Comrade Neil is saying, that one doesn't just have to look at trying to make get into contact or alliances with organized labor. And of course, that comes with its own problems. But one should look at what are the movements that are beginning to emerge from the grassroots, in the trenches. And sometimes they're small, but there's all kinds of really new ways of being, of building organization, of holding to account. And I like what Comrade Neil says about, we must be careful about the existing leadership, what their agendas are. It's been proved here as well. So if one is able to give as an individual a message of solidarity, then certainly that is what I would like to say. And further that, yes, certainly once the information comes out, that this will be taken back to some of the networks at a community level, some of the trade unionist comrades who work with us as well, And of course, we're not just relying and should not rely on leadership only, comrades. Thank you. That's just a message from myself.
Thank you. So if there's no other comments or questions, I want to thank the brothers who have joined us from Namibia and workers around the world. Solidarity, we're going to continue the fight. And thank you for joining us on this important discussion.
Thank you. Bye, Steve.
Thank you. Take care.